Okay, so right now we're going to review reducing fractions. Remember how I told you guys that 2/4 is, so you have 2, 1, 2, add a 4 is the same thing as 1/2. Remember that we talked about that months ago? Well, this is called reducing a fraction. 2/4 can both be divided and made into a equal fraction that is in lower terms. So just like 2 out of 4 slices is the same thing as half the pizza, 9/12 can also be reduced. So I'm going to start showing you how to reduce fractions one after another. 9/12. You had this on page 233. And some of you didn't get this correct. So 9/12. The first thing you ask yourself when I want you to reduce a fraction, the first thing you're going to ask yourself, is there a multiplication train that both 9 and 12 can be found on? What multiplication train are 9 and 12 multiples of? Will you find 9 and 12 on the 2 multiplication train? 9 isn't here. 12 is, but 9 is not. So 2 cannot divide this fraction. Let's keep going. Will you ever find 9 and a 12 on the 3 multiplication chart? Yes, take a look. 9 and 12 can both be divided by 3 evenly. Okay? Now, always ask yourself, after you found a number that can divide, ask yourself if there's a bigger number that could divide it. In this case, there aren't, but sometimes there will be. So take a look. The only place you'll ever find a 9 and a 12 on is a 3 multiplication chart. So we're going to divide both numbers by 3. You divide the denominator and the numerator by 3. And this is what you get. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. 3/4. 9/12 equals 3/4. Okay, let's try another one. There was another one on that page. 6/10. What can you divide 6/10 by? What of these trains can divide 6 and 10 evenly? Will you see a 6 and a 10 on the 4 multiplication? Nope. Will you see a 6 and a 10 on the 3 multiplication? No. You'll see a 6, but there is no 10 as a multiple of 3. This won't work. Is there a 6 and a 10 on the 2 multiplication train? Yeah, there is. 6 and 10 can both be divided by 2. This is what you're going to do. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 6/10 is the same as 3/5. Okay? Let's move over to page 236, number 4A, B, and C. Let's try those. You have a 4/28. All right, remember what to ask yourself? What multiplication train are both 4 and 28 multiples on? Will you see a 4 and 28 on a 2 multiplication train? You might, but the next question I taught you to ask if there's a bigger number. Some of you divided 4 and 28 by 2 and got a 2/14. Well, is there a multiplication train that both 2 and 14 will be also found on? Yes, there is. So you'll have to work more. Remember how I told you, if you don't find the biggest train and divide by one that's not big enough, you'll have to do double the work. So 4 divided by 2 equals 2, and 28 divided by 2 equals 14. Let me put this here. 4/28 divided by 2 is 2/14, but then you have to divide again because 2 and 14 are still on the multiplication train. You still have to keep working. 2 divided by 2 and 14 divided by 2 is 7, 1/7. So actually 4/828 equals to 1/7. Because you didn't do your job in the beginning the right way, you had to do double the work. So this is what it should have been. Take a look. Get rid of this. 4/28. The second question you ask yourself is if there is a bigger train that you'll find 4/828 on. So what number that's bigger than 2 can divide 4/28? Will you see a 4/28 on the 3 multiplication train? No. Will you see a 4/28 on the 4 multiplication train? Yeah. You should have divided it by 4 right away. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 28 divided by 4 is 7. And that's how we got our 1/7 without the extra work. Okay? So pay attention to make sure that you always do the biggest multiplication train. Okay? So for B now, you have 3/15. Let's see if you can do this before I get it done. I'm going to look at 2 multiplication train, 3 multiplication, 4, 5, and 6, and see if I can find 3/15. 3 and 15. Nope. I found a 3 and I found a 15 on this train, so I'm going to divide both by 3. Did you get a 1/5? 3/15 divided by 3 equals 1/5. That's your answer. Okay? And one more. 6/22. 6/22. What number can divide both of these evenly? See if you can do it. It looks like 22 should be big enough to be divided by a lot of numbers, but 22 doesn't show up on any multiplication train except for 2. I'm going to divide it by 2. And 6, of course, is divisible by 2. And 3/11. Did you get that? Give yourself a pat on the back if you got it right. Okay, that's it for today's review.